All right, everyone, get ready because today we're taking a deep dive into a paper that's got the AI community buzzing.
It really makes you question some of those big assumptions about how we can improve large language models, especially this idea that multi-agent debate is, the secret to unlocking their full potential.
This paper, if multi-agent debate is the answer, what is the question? Really digs into that.
Yeah, the authors, Hengfan Zhang, Xiao Kui, Xinren Wang, and their team, they were really systematic in their approach. They took 5 popular multi-agent debate methods, and each one had a slightly different way of interacting and exchanging information.
So it's kind of like different approaches to structuring the debate.
Exactly. And then to put these methods to the test, they used 9 common LLM benchmarks. These covered a range of tasks, like everything from general knowledge to even code generation. And they didn't just stick to one type of LLM either. They used 4 different foundational models, both proprietary and open source.
Okay, so we've got our debaters, we've got the testing ground. What did they find? What's the big reveal?
Get this. They found that none of these fancy multi-agent debate methods consistently did better than a much simpler single-agent baseline. They used a technique called chain-of-thought prompting.
Hold on, so you're saying having a bunch of LLMs going head-to-head isn't necessarily better than just asking one to, think step by step?
That's exactly what the research suggests, and it's pretty surprising, to say the least. It challenges this whole idea that more complex, collaborative approaches are always better.
So is this the end for multi-agent debate then? Is it a dead end?
Not necessarily. The researchers can't think so, and I agree with them. There's still potential there. But we need to be a bit more critical about how we approach it. You can't just assume that throwing more agents at a problem or having more rounds of debate is going to magically lead to better results.
That makes sense. It's like with any team, it's not just about the number of people, it's about how they work together.
Exactly. And one of the key takeaways from this paper is that the complexity of some multi-agent debate methods might actually be holding them back.
Interesting. So less is more sometimes.
It seems that way. The simplest framework, Society of Mind, actually performed the best, especially when combined with the author's proposed solution model heterogeneity. So what that means is using different LLM with different architectures and training data for each agent in the debate.
So it's like instead of having a room full of AI clones debating, you have a panel of experts, each with their own unique perspective and skills.
Exactly. And that diversity seems to be key to really unlocking the potential of multi-agent debate. The results were quite striking, this simple, tweak-boosted performance across all the methods they tested.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why this paper is causing such a stir. It really makes you rethink some of those fundamental assumptions about LLM improvement.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of thinking outside the box and not being afraid to question, the conventional wisdom.
Okay, so we've talked about that multi-agent debate isn't a guaranteed win and that model heterogeneity seems promising. What else did they find in this deep dive?
Well, they took a really close look at how the different multi-agent debate methods performed on individual questions, and they found some interesting patterns in how they were correcting answers.
Okay, let's dig into that. What kind of patterns?
Some methods, like multi-persona, chat-eval, and agent-verse, were almost too aggressive in their critiques. They were good at spotting incorrect answers, but they often ended up changing correct answers to incorrect ones.
So they were kind of overzealous, maybe even a little reckless in their attempts to improve things.
Yeah, you could say that they were really quick to challenge answers, even when those answers were right.
Interesting. And what about the other methods, the ones that were more cautious?
Well, methods like Society of Mind and Exchange of Thoughts were less likely to introduce new errors, but they also didn't catch as many incorrect answers. It's like they were too hesitant to, make a change, even when they had a good reason to.
So it sounds like the challenge is finding that balance between being confident enough to flag errors, but also knowing when to leave a good answer alone.
Exactly. That's the million-dollar question, and it's not an easy one to answer. It's not just about adding more LLMs or more rounds of debate. It's about understanding how they interact and finding ways to guide their behavior in a more productive direction.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between being bold and being accurate.
Precisely.
Okay, before we move on, let's do a quick recap for those who are short on time. What are the key takeaways here?
Absolutely. So first, multi-agent debate for LLMs isn't a guaranteed win. Simpler techniques like chain-of-thought prompting can still be very effective.
Right. And second, to really tap into the potential of multi-agent debate, we need to embrace model diversity.
Using a mix of LLMs with different strengths and weaknesses seems to be a better approach than relying on just one type of LLM.
Great summary. Now, for those sticking with us, we've got a lot more to unpack. We'll dive deeper into model heterogeneity and what it could mean for the future of AI. So stay tuned.
It's interesting, isn't it, this whole idea of balancing boldness and accuracy in these multi-agent debate systems?
Yeah, it's almost like they have to walk this tightrope, assertive enough to catch those errors, but not so much that they end up making things worse.
Exactly. And the researchers found that the methods that were really good at correcting, those wrong answers were also the ones most likely to flip a correct answer to an incorrect one.
Almost too eager to prove their point, even if it meant messing things up.
That's a great way to put it. And it makes you think, how can we design these systems to be, more discerning, more thoughtful about their critiques?
Yeah, how do you teach an AI system to know when to hold back and when to, push forward in a debate?
It's tricky, that's for sure. The paper suggests that giving those agents more context, more feedback, could be helpful.
So it's not just about the debate itself, it's also about the information surrounding it, the feedback loop.
Right, like giving those debate teams access to a library and maybe even feedback from some experienced judges.
That makes a lot of sense. Giving them the tools and guidance to make, more informed decisions.
Speaking of informed decisions, another thing they looked at was efficiency.
Ah, yes, efficiency always important, especially when you're dealing with these massive language models that, gobble up computing power.
Exactly. And what they found was that compared to self-consistency sampling, multi-agent debate was generally less efficient in terms of token consumption.
So even though some methods were better than basic single-agent prompting, they weren't always doing it in the most economical way.
Right, and that raises some questions about scalability. If it takes a ton of computing power just to get small improvements, is multi-agent debate really practical in the real world?
Especially with all these new, larger models coming out all the time.
Exactly. Efficiency is crucial. We can't just keep throwing more and more computing power at the problem and expect that to be sustainable.
So any ideas on how to make these multi-agent debate systems more efficient?
The paper doesn't really offer specific solutions, but they suggest exploring things like having agents focus on particular parts of the problem, or maybe even having them exchange summaries of their reasoning instead of generating full responses every time.
So basically finding ways to streamline the process and avoid unnecessary computation.
Exactly. It's about striking that balance, right? Getting the right answer, but doing it in a way that's, feasible.
Let's go back to model heterogeneity for a second. I think that's one of the most exciting parts of this whole paper.
Oh, absolutely. It's such an elegant solution to this challenge of, embracing diversity in these multi-agent systems.
Instead of having every agent be a clone of the same LLM, why not use all these different models that already exist, each one with its own strengths and weaknesses?
Exactly. It's like building an all-star team of AI experts, each with their own specialty.
And their experiments with Heter-MAD showed that this approach can really boost performance.
Oh yeah, they found that Heter-MAD consistently improved performance across all the multi-agent debate methods they tested. In fact, Hetersum, using that simplest method, Society of Mind, had the best overall performance.
That's amazing. So maybe simpler frameworks are actually better at utilizing this model diversity.
It really makes you think, right? Complexity isn't always the answer. Sometimes a simpler approach, but with the right ingredients, like model heterogeneity, can be way more effective.
So it's not just about building these super complex systems, it's about understanding how those different components work together.
Well said. It's about embracing that diversity, not just in the models, but in the way we approach training and evaluation.
This paper really opens up a whole new world of possibilities for AI, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It challenges us to think differently about how we design and develop these systems, and to consider these crucial factors like diversity, efficiency, and reverseness.
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the bigger picture here? What other areas of AI do you think could benefit from this focus on model heterogeneity?
That's a great question. And I think it speaks to this larger trend we're seeing. As AI systems get more powerful, more sophisticated, we need to be careful about assuming that just scaling up our existing approaches will lead to better results.
So just feeding them more data or more computing power isn't always the answer.
Exactly. We need to be more thoughtful in how we design these systems, thinking about efficiency, robustness, even ethical considerations.
And maybe most importantly, being willing to question our assumptions, to challenge the way things are usually done.
Absolutely. That's what drives real progress, right?
Well said. So for everyone working in AI, or even just following the field, I think this paper has a powerful message. Don't be afraid to question the status quo, to explore those unconventional approaches.
Sometimes the simplest ideas, like introducing a bit of diversity, can lead to the biggest breakthroughs. One area that jumps out at me is natural language processing, things like machine translation or text summarization. We've usually relied on these single large language models for that kind of stuff.
Right, and we've seen some really impressive results, But there's always room for improvement, isn't there?
Exactly. And I think this idea of model heterogeneity could be huge. Imagine instead of just using one massive model for translation, we have this whole ensemble of specialized models.
Each one trained on like a specific language pair or even a particular type of text.
Precisely. And then you combine their outputs and boom, you could get much more accurate and fluent translations.
That's pretty cool. And it doesn't have to stop at language tasks, right? This idea could be used in other areas of AI too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about computer vision for things like image recognition or object detection. You could have different models that are like experts in recognizing different objects or scenes.
So instead of one model trying to do it all, you've got a whole team of specialists.
Exactly. And by putting all their knowledge together, you could build much more reliable and robust computer vision systems.
This whole concept of model heterogeneity really makes you rethink how we approach AI development. It's not just about building bigger and more complex models. It's about finding the right mix of models and letting them, work together.
It's about that diversity, right? Recognizing that different models bring different things to the table.
And this paper is a perfect example of how challenging those assumptions and thinking outside the box can lead to some really exciting breakthroughs.
It reminds us that we still have so much to learn about AI, and that there's always room for new ideas and discoveries.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into this fascinating paper. Thanks for joining us. And to all you AI enthusiasts out there, keep pushing those boundaries, keep asking those tough questions, and never stop exploring.
And hey, maybe you'll be the one to make the next big breakthrough in AI.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of AI research. Until then, keep innovating.